My nightmare cousin is demanding I use my mother's inheritance money to pay for her luxurious wedding, and my aunt is manipulating me about. My mother passed away a few years ago. Being an only child whose father had passed a decade earlier, everything got left to me. This should surprise nobody, but it surprised my nightmare Aunt Ellen and her hellspawn cousin Courtney. In fact, they thought it was horrifically unfair. My mother was mentally ill, untreated and abusive. I was frequently in low contact with her over the course of my adult life, and she often tried to make me feel bad about this by fawning over cousin Courtney. Before she passed, she'd often take cousin Courtney on trips with her. However, once she passed, Aunt Ellen got it in her head that cousin Courtney should get a share of the estate so she could keep taking trips on my mother's money. This caused a good bit of fit-tossing and family strife. Cousin Courtney even tried to sue me in small claims for the cost of a trip my mother had been talking about taking her on before she passed. Cousin Courtney didn't show up to the court date and lost by default. Apparently she didn't think she needed to for some reason and was very upset about it. I wasn't really thrilled by the lost vacation day, so my sympathy was beyond limited. Fast forward to last month. Aunt Ellen calls me to inform me that cousin Courtney has gotten engaged. I make appropriate noises while thinking to myself the poor sod has made a terrible mistake. Aunt Ellen then makes this bizarre comment about sending her a check. I'm all, what? According to Aunt Ellen, my mother had promised cousin Courtney money for her wedding should she ever get married. Now this seems ridiculous to me on multiple fronts. I am not my mother. My mother gave many a rant on how foolish it was to waste down payment of a house-level money on a wedding. She's a bit dead at this point, so whatever she promised died with her. I say no a lot and stop answering calls and emails from this diseased branch of the family tree. Some backstory: Aunt Ellen and I already had bad blood about weddings. She uninvited me to a previous family wedding, then told everybody there I was a rude no-show. My level of interest in writing her a large check for cousin Courtney's wedding is somewhere below my interest in poking a nest of yellow jackets while en ked, and the chances of it happening after the lawsuit are somewhere around my cats not yowling at the fridge when dinner's late. Let's also pause to acknowledge that the wedding plans are intense. We're talking destination weddings at an expensive resort, multiple photographers, out-of-season flowers, designer everything and so forth. Her idea of what she needs for a wedding approximates something they'd cover on one of those cable channels that has convinced people 10K dresses are reasonable. My own wedding was extremely small because we prioritize paying off student loans. There's no reason anybody reasonable would think I'd buy into this level of Instagram dream wedding being necessary, but this community isn't about reasonable people. Cousin Courtney then lands on my doorstep. I foolishly let her in and hear her out. Mind you, this is an adult who is engaged to be married and a doctor in a particularly highly compensated specialty. She probably makes triple what I do unless she's being screwed by her employer. She doesn't know what to do. Aunt Ellen has cut her off. I can't fathom Aunt Ellen would ever do this, so I'm a bit gobsmacked. Cousin Courtney has gotten everything she's ever requested in life by tossing tantrums until Aunt Ellen or her husband hand it over. Well, for once Aunt Ellen has drawn the line. Apparently cousin Courtney planned the entire wedding without consulting Aunt Ellen under the assumption she'd get as much money as her half-sister had for her wedding, the one I was uninvited from. Turns out, no. That money had come from the other side of the family, and cousin Courtney has to pay up or she'll lose her deposits. Aunt Ellen has refused to help, claiming she can't remortgage the house again. She's done it too many times already to buy things for cousin Courtney, and the money just isn't there. My position is that this is not my problem, but cousin Courtney has never budgeted in her life. Has no idea how. Aunt Ellen is still kicking in money to her rent monthly so she can live in a safe building with a doorman. So I make a terrible mistake. See, I advise college students professionally. One of the modules I have is on financial planning. So I whip that baby out and sit down with cousin Courtney to talk about how to set up a budget and save for her dream wedding. There's no way she and hubby-to-be can't do this with their combined incomes if they buckle down and plan for it. This is where things get really nuts. Cousin Courtney's expenses are crazy. She lives on takeout and multiple caramel soy calorie bomb coffee drinks a day. She needs those because her work as a doctor is so stressful. She has a country club membership that costs $1,000 a month. The real kicker is her cell phone plan. It's an absurd unlimited plan that's priced higher than current rates with her carrier. All she's got to do to save herself some money each month is call them up and switch to the new plan. She won't do it. Why? Mommy always deals with her cell plan. She hates calling customer service people. She hates being on hold. It's just not that much money and she can't ask Mommy to do it because she's not talking to Mommy since she got cut off. This is around where I realized all she's done this entire time is whine about how expensive everything is and refuse to do anything constructive. Her reason for agreeing to go through this budgeting exercise was to show me how poor she is and how much she needs me to cough up the money for her wedding. My motive was to get her to finally do a bit of adulting. She was decidedly uninterested in that. You can't help somebody who won't help themselves. It's just not possible. When she realized I wasn't going to be writing a check, she dried up the crocodile tears and flounced. There was some very unfortunate name calling as well. The final coda to this absurd drama is that she made up with Mommy. No, Mommy didn't switch her to a cheaper cell phone plan and get her sorted out with a budget. Aunt Ellen called using an unfamiliar number to tell me how mean I was to her precious spoiled brat, and that my mother would have wanted her to have a perfect wedding. I hung up and blocked her mid-rant.